You're listening to the Love Your Neighbor podcast.
Well, thank you for joining us on the Love Your Neighbor podcast. My name is John, and I get the privilege of hosting this podcast this season. It's brought to you by Brandon Wellness and the Brandon Wellness organization. We're glad to be part of the Brandon community, and today we have a member of that community, Myles Dixon. Dr. Myles, thanks for joining us on the Links podcast.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
I'm glad you accepted. And you're looking very dapper today.
Well, thank you.
If I had to give awards for the most dapper looking guest, you'd be right at the top of the list.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
I feel like I underdressed. That's okay. You know what? One of the things that you're great at, Myles, and I have to just share. I want to thank you, and you have been a huge blessing to my life over the last, really since we moved to Brandon. And I just appreciate what you do. You have a way of helping people that I just appreciate so much. And so thank you for being my doctor and straightening me out from time to time.
Well, it's a pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. So no one knows like Dr. Myles how twisted I can get, and you've straightened me out a number of times. So, well, Myles, I want you to just kind of share with the people in Brandon that maybe don't know you or don't know your story. Share a little bit about who you are, your family, how you got to Brandon. Just talk to us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I grew up in Iowa. I was an Iowa boy. So born in Sioux Center and raised in Spirit Lake, and moved to Brandon in 2000. So been able to see some really cool changes in the community. Own and operate Envive Chiropractic in Brandon. We've got a Sioux Falls office as well. And so, yeah, I love our community. Married to a beautiful woman, Casey, my best friend and my accountability partner. She keeps me on the straight and narrow, and we push each other, and so it's been good.
Good.
Yeah. We got 5 kids.
Yeah.
Which is why my hair is gray and falling out.
and just give us kind of an idea of the ages of your kids, because that's you got a whole span there.
Yeah, we do. The oldest is in college. She's 20, sophomore in college. Yeah. I've got 2 seniors in high school, and I've got an 8th grader, and the youngest is 3rd grader.
Okay.
Yep.
So you grew up in Spirit Lake, Iowa.
I did.
What brought you? There's there had to be a little medical school, a little chiropractic school there. You're a chiropractor. Talk to us about when that became something that you were interested in, that you wanted to really give your life to, because it's a lifestyle. If I understand what you do, it's not just a job for you.
It is, yeah. My father's a chiropractor, so that's part of it. And growing up when I was in school, I had terrible grades in school. I struggled. And I remember 2nd grade, I spent that summer in my 2nd grade teacher's home because I couldn't read. So she's making donuts, teaching me how to read. And so school was a struggle for me. One of the blessings my dad talked me into doing, kind of pushed me into doing, is to get a job. So when I suppose I was 12 years old, he got me a job working on a farm. And I loved it. And it instilled, that was work. So it instilled in me the value of work. And I thought, maybe I'll be a farmer. And then I thought, well, heck, this guy's milking cows. This guy's never got a day off. Right. He's milking cows, always work to be done, never caught up. So I thought, well, shoot, maybe I'll be a chiropractor. But, with my great grades in school, I thought, man, how am I going to do that? So I ended up going to a community college, and I had to figure out how to learn and study. And it took me until college to really get my act together. And it was a humbling thing, because I was a popular kid. I was the homecoming king, and here I am. All my buddies are going to big universities, and here I am going to this community college where I knew no one. But it was hunker down and get it done time. So I hit the books and got on the dean's list and ended up working my way up and finally got accepted into chiropractic college and did that. So,
yeah. Wow, what a story. I think so many times, and in the life of my own children and being a privilege of being a part of many of, we think sometimes that, what happens in those early years is so important and significant. And in some ways it is, but you learn some lessons early on. How have you been able to pass that on to your kids? Like, because that's a struggle. I mean, struggling through school. What was it that got you through that? How did you make it through? And what have you passed on to your kids?
I always, my father's so good at connecting with people. And so I learned from him. I mean, we call him the mayor, because if we went out in the community to go eat lunch or something, my dad's gone because he's talking to people all around the restaurant, But it was a good thing for me to learn. So I've always been able to connect with people and hang out with people that are smarter than me, that are more successful, that are doing something that I wanted to do. I just had the ability, and always have, to be able to hang around those kind of people. And so that got me through high school. Just, hey, can you help me? I'm struggling with my math,
Sure.
And it helps me today. So those are the kind of things I try to instill in my kids. It's not, the question is not always what, but who.
That's good.
Who can help me through this aspect that I'm struggling with? And then the ability to be humble enough to ask for help. So, yeah, I mean, being a parent is humbling. And I've messed it up in more ways than one. And I'm always learning, but it makes me a better human being, being a parent. I'm sure you can relate.
I completely. Yeah, I think you to put it in a word, it's really about humility. It's understanding and helping our kids to understand what's most important is really, really not what others think, but then understanding who we are and surrendering that, submitting that to those around us. I walk into your place, and many times I just look forward to walking in the door because of how I'm treated when I walk into your chiropractic office. Talk a little bit about this is the Love Your Neighbor podcast, and I really feel like you do a great job of loving on me and all of your patients. It's not something that it's not just something you do. It's who you are. I mean, you can't fake it. How did that come to be more? It seems to me that it's more than just aligning a spine. It seems to be more than that for you.
It is. It comes down to what's your vision, what's your intention, what's your why. And so our why is to enhance people's lives. And we do that by creating an unforgettable experience. And, the old saying that people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. And so it's part of our culture. It's a requirement if you're going to work in our office that you've got to be able to leave your personal issues at the door and show up empty and ready to serve. Yeah. And, what we find is that it's fulfilling. When life is only about you and what you can get out of it, it becomes pretty hollow and empty in a hurry. So we find fulfillment and joy in being able to be a service and a blessing to others.
Yeah, that's rich. That's cool.
It's easy to say, it's not that easy to do.
I would imagine there are some moments when you have to remind yourself of that.
Every day.
You have to lock the door in your office and say, remind yourself.
I've walked in the door, had something on my mind. It was about me. We all have things that we struggle with. I've had to walk in the front door, turn around, walk back out, and clear my head, and just say, I got to show up, ready to serve.
Wow, that's good. Well, I hope if you're listening, I hope you're taking notes. If you're not, it'll be a good time. I appreciate that. That's really exciting. What do you love, Myles? Talk a little bit about growing up in Spirit Lake, Northwest Iowa. What is it that drew you to Brandon? And kind of a two-part question. What drew you to Brandon? And then what has kept you in Brandon as an involved part, not only serving the community professionally, but also you volunteer and you're a part of organizations within the community. Talk about what drew you here and then what's kept you in town.
When I was a kid, we would come to Sioux Falls to shop, school shopping and those types. So I always loved coming to Sioux Falls, and because Spirit Lake's a small town, but I never really knew about Brandon. So my sister-in-law, her father lived in Brandon for years, and so he got to tell me about it, how Brandon is growing, and so I thought, interesting, because I worked with my father for 3 years in Spirit Lake as a chiropractor, and I found out that I had too many old buddies there, and I'd had a hard time making the transition to professional. Get your act together, right? And so that was part of it. And then my dad runs a great clinic and is a great chiropractor. It was hard for me to work with him and for him. So I knew I needed to do something on my own. So started researching on Brandon, growing town, and just made the jump. Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And so, we love it.
Awesome. Now, obviously, the community is growing. So your patient population continues to grow. What do you find about Brandon that has really wanted you to stay here? What is it about Brandon? You mentioned this past weekend as a recording, there was a play, and your son was involved in that. Talk about the community of Brandon. What do you love about it?
There's a spirit in Brandon where people just have a high level of connectivity. Between I think about several things. One is, I think it's so cool that the church community all come together and put on a great event, which is the prayer breakfast every year. Yeah. I think that just embodies really the spirit of our community in Brandon, right, which is so cool. Obviously, the school district. People just show up to support Brandon, and I think that's different than other places. I just think that there's a different level of connection there, which is so cool, And I think also our chamber does such a great job in Brandon of promoting, hey, buy Brandon, right? Mm-hmm. Get involved in the community, and so and then think about Coach Garrow and his recent passing, and just was that inspiring to see the community rally around that family in that time of need. I thought was just again another example of how interconnected our community is.
Yeah, there's a recent article, about Coach Garrow's son and now stepping into the role really, of coaching within the community and that legacy that he left. I know he coached track as well. He coached your daughter, I believe, in track and field. Yeah, I think you're right there. I look at this, and myself being newer to Brandon, we moved here just about 7 years ago. I feel almost in some ways kind of like an old guy because so many new people are coming, and maybe some of the people that are listening to this are newer to the community of Brandon. What would you say to somebody that's newer to Brandon? How do you engage in that community? How do you get involved? What are you mentioned the chamber. What are some ways to get involved serving in the community that you're aware of from your perspective with the chamber and the Brandon Community Foundation?
Well, you're right on it there. I've served on the board of the Brandon Community Foundation. Jeff Thuey, I think common friend, invited me to serve on that board, and I didn't know anything about it. I've been plugged into the community since 2000. Mm-hmm. And so because I trust Jeff so much, I said yes. Mm-hmm. And so that's been it is a great way to be able to get involved. Mm-hmm. We give grant money away every year. I think this year we gave away $55,000 in grant money to nonprofits in Brandon Valley.
Wow.
So it's a great community event to get involved in.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, there's an annual event, the Oak and Vine.
The Oak and Vine.
Where would somebody go if they're a part of a nonprofit that wants to apply for one of those grants? Is there a website or a person or a contact for that?
Yes. Yeah, we got a great website, BrandonCommunityFoundation.org.
Okay.
So check it out there. It's all set up. You can apply for grants there. donate, send a message to get involved. We're always looking for people to serve on the board and
Great.
help support the community that way.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. What was a cool story from this past year of someone that applied and then you got to be a part of that story? Are there any stories of where you thought, oh, this is what this is for? This is why we do this? Yeah.
I can't think of a specific one off the top of my head, but it's just, we play videos every year at the Oak and Vine that just showcase where that grant money was used for. Mm-hmm. And I know the fire department has been one of those recipients, because our fire department, Brandon's volunteer. Right. So, to be able to help support them and give them the resources they need and to see it in the form of video as to how they're putting those funds to use, I think is impactful for the community, because, sometimes you write a check and you don't know where the check goes to. And it's nice to see, hey, it's staying right here in Brandon.
That's so good, because that's one of those organizations, the fire department. You don't know what you don't know, but 100% of the volunteer, or 100% of the fire department in Brandon is volunteer. We had in our neighborhood, we live in, next to each other. We had to call the fire department last year, and my neighbor, to watch my neighbor, who's on the volunteer fire department, to watch him as our house is literally smoking. The house is on fire. Well, the stereo was on fire. It smelled like the house was on fire. But to literally watch him jog down the street with his radio into my house, walk in, and here's my neighbor. First time he's been in my house to walk in and go, okay, I'm here. It's okay. It's going to be okay.
It's awesome.
I tell you what, those are the kind of organization, and those are the kind of people that live in Brandon.
That's right.
And I'll never forget. Just that feeling of going, it's going to be okay, because they're on their way. And within 5 minutes of arriving, it was obvious that we just had a little electrical fire, but we didn't know that. And but that's the kind of community that we live in. And so that's a great way to plug in. Community Foundation, volunteer fire department, great way to get involved. So, Dr. Myles, thank you for being with us. Thank you for joining us. Is there anything that you'd like to say to the people of Brandon, or anything you'd like to share that could make a difference with them? Because I know you do this for a living. You help people. Is there anything that you can tell people to help enhance their life? What would you say to somebody that just from your perspective and your in your role, how could you help someone have a better day today when it comes to their physical? I know what you're going to tell me. I feel like I need to sit up straight.
Watch that posture.
As
you were saying that, what came to my mind is you don't have to have a title to be a leader. Step up and lead. Find a place that you can get plugged in the community and be a service. Lead. And that's what community really is. It's the accumulation of all of our efforts and wisdom and resources that really build our community and make it what it is. And there's a ton of people moving here from places like California, who don't know what community really means. Sometimes that stepping up and leading is, hey, go walk over to the new guys on the block and introduce yourself. Bring them some cookies, Yeah,
it's a great point. Well, I appreciate you. Thanks for coming and joining us, and we'll look forward to talking again. Thanks so much, Myles.
My pleasure. Go Lynx.
Thank you for joining us on the Love Your Neighbor podcast. The purpose of the Love Your Neighbor podcast is to build community one conversation at a time. You can help us build that community by sharing the podcast on your social media channels and rating our podcast on whatever platform you're listening from. Another way is to let us know of any neighbors who have a story. Go Lynx!